Okay, welcome Vielle's Google Hangout on the 11th of July. And let's just go through who we've got available to talk today. Well, there's me, Neil Singer. We have Del Henry.
Hello.
We have Richard Walford.
Good morning.
We have our man in Scotland, Graham Wardell.
Good morning.
And we have a very special guest today, Russell Quirk, founder of eMoov.
Hi, good morning. Glad to be here.
And what we often do is talk about the market. As you know, we're CPD accredited, so anybody watching will get CPD points. You've just got to contact us afterwards, and we will send you a certificate. Remember to sign up to the YouTube channel for Vielle, and you'll get notifications of everything we're selling and our Google Hangouts and any videos we post. Right, Russell. Hello, Russell.
Hello.
What I thought we would do today is, as it's great to have you, and I think quite a bit about the online. Well, I think I know a bit about the online agency. I follow it very closely. What we normally do is talk about deals.
Let's see.
Yes. Well, what we normally do is talk about deals first of all. But actually, it's so good for you to join us. I just thought we'd give you the floor. Really, can I ask you some questions just to get going? And by all means, throw in anything you like.
Yeah, sure. Look, we'll freestyle, huh?
Freestyle, yes. I did see a very interesting. I must show you something which I did find actually online, which I think you'll like this one.
It's not one of my horrible quotes that's been completely taken out of context.
Yes, look. It says, "Why my firm is worth millions." You see that?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about that a bit if you want.
Yeah, delighted. Anyway, so tell us about eMoov. What is for people who don't know, can you tell us what is eMoov?
Yeah, look, eMoov is an estate agent, pure and simple. We're different to high street agents in that we're, I guess, what you would call disruptive. So the proposition that we have compared to, let's say, a traditional high street estate agent is kind of.
Oh, why is he frozen?
Do you still hear me?
Yeah, sorry, you froze slightly for the moment.
Yeah. Sorry. It's an incoming call. I've had to resort to my iPhone instead of my MacBook, and so I'm now at the behest of the people trying to get hold of me. So
don't worry, carry it. Will if you freeze, we'll deal with it accordingly. Oh, he's gone again.
No, I'm still here. So there are three ways that we're different, I guess, to high street estate agents. So one is that we charge a fixed fee. So there's no percentage, there's no commission. It's a fixed fee where everybody pays the same. So currently that's £795. That's our value proposition, if you like. The fee saving, I mean, there's a big argument, a big debate going on in the sector right now insofar as what traditional estate agents actually charge. Someone in Newcastle selling stuff at 100k is obviously going to be very, very different to an agent in Hammersmith or in Kensington and Chelsea selling stuff at millions. But the wisdom seems to be that an average estate agency fee across the UK is about 1.3%. So based on our average selling price of about 300k, it's roughly speaking, it's about £3,500 to £4,000 that someone would ordinarily pay, and obviously we're saving them a multiple of that.
Yeah.
The second part of our proposition is our customer service. Now, everyone talks about customer service. I think it's fair to say that estate agents are not exactly renowned for high levels of customer service, but we are. We're currently the #1 estate agent in the UK, as defined by allagents.co.uk, the UK's largest property review website. So in terms of what our customers say about us, we are the best. Simple as that. So that's very much part of our proposition. Then the other thing is the technology. Now, this online estate agency label is quite interesting because although there are a number of participants in our space, actually only a couple of us really have any technology, or what I would say is proper proprietary platform technology that's been built from scratch. So us and Purplebricks, frankly. So we are a technology-aided business. The platform that we've built, which we've spent about £3 million on over the last couple of years, is pretty defining, pretty transformative, we think, in that it allows an element of self-serve, although our proposition is not about self-serve, particularly when it comes to things like offer negotiation, sales progression, and so on. But very much what we've done is to identify what the customer wants to do for themselves and what we believe, and the customer agrees, we should be doing manually to help them. So I can talk about that in some more detail if you want, in terms of what those definitions are.
Yeah, what we can do is we can share. I can share a screen. I can show people the agency. I mean, they can go onto eMoov directly, I'm sure. So it might. I can. If there's any particular areas you want me to direct people to, they can have a look. But I'm quite interested in the that you mentioned Purplebricks actually, because there's quite a few there's quite a few online agencies sort of kicking around, aren't there? There's
there's about 6 or 7 meaningful ones. There's a few that do small volume, but there's probably 20 or 30, which actually is not that many when you consider there's 26,000 estate agency branches in the UK, sales and lettings.
Can I ask you a couple of things which I thought would be quite interesting for people watching? Is how did you come up with the idea of eMoov?
I first came up with the idea in 2006. I bought a domain name, which I still own, which was futureagent.com. I was very keen to explore the possibility of estate agency as a service going the same way as travel, insurance, recruitment, and so on had. It was evident to me that because of the power of Rightmove, so Rightmove at that time was about 6 years old and really gaining traction, that ultimately people were not visiting estate agency branches anymore, and that I thought that there was a huge economy of scale that could come from having all of an agent's inventory in one place. And therefore there'd be a saving in terms of premises and staff, and that saving could be passed on to the consumer. So the idea actually is about 11 years old. But look, we weren't the first. I mean, there were, I think when we launched in 2009, there were a couple of people that were doing what we intended to do, kind of by coincidence, really.
Are they still around?
Yes-ish. House Network were the first, so they're still around, although they've seen some changes in their business, I think, recently. Hatched they preceded us, but Adam Day left that business, funnily enough, announced this week. That was taken over by Connells 2 years ago, and Adam, for whatever reason, decided to leave that business this week. So Hatched are still around, but they're really now a division of Connells. And I think I would argue, and I don't want to put words in Adam Day's mouth, but I would argue maybe he would agree that that business is perhaps not quite the same as it was conceptualized as being 11 or 12 years ago now.
Is Hatched the one where they offer to buy your house?
No, that's Nested. That's Matt Robinson. It's a whole different ballgame. We can talk about that as well if you want. I met Matt last week, funnily enough, and had a very interesting conversation with him about his business model.
Yeah, I've got views about that actually. I'll be very careful what I say.
Yeah, I know it's a really interesting concept. In the US, actually, the nested concept. In the US, there are 2 businesses. One's called Open Door, and one's called Knock. Open Door have raised $250 million, that's with a B,
wow.
$250 million to expand that business model across the US.
Are you going to go outside the UK, you think?
We're certainly approached on a regular basis by potential joint venture partners that want us to. So we've been talking to people in the US, Argentina, South Africa, and the Far East about our model, our brand, and also about our technology. So there's a possibility that we could use our technology and or our brand as a joint venture partner with established property businesses in other territories. We're thinking about whether we go down that route or whether we do what Purplebricks have done, which is to do a full-blown launch in another territory, so i.e. Australia, US, etc.
Can I ask you the tech side? You said you've invested 3 million in tech, and some of the others have, I suppose, also. I mean, for someone who's not a residential agent, the online agencies that I think appear good, are of course eMoov, of course, Purplebricks, which I've just watched their share price go up and up, and Yopa. Yopa seems to be quite an interesting business, and I have watched how simple they've got, because you see their advert on TV. So those really seem to me to be the ones that are leading the charge. But I don't know if the tech behind each company is different. Or
it is. It very much is.
Is it?
So,
I'd be very interested to know how. Are you
let me explain what the differences are. So, and this is my view, right? So it's based on fact and evidence as far as we see it. But look, it's some of the points I made are arguable. Purplebricks have got a platform that they built from scratch. They built that platform before they launched to the consumer. We have developed our platform in conjunction with the consumer. So we think there's a big difference there, actually, in terms of the user experience. Then there is Yopper, who have an almost identical kind of approach to Purplebricks, really, in that their business model, their proposition is the same. However, their technology is built around Salesforce. So Salesforce are, a third-party software provider that allows you to adapt your software development around their core.
Salesforce is
great
Salesforce,
business.
It's a CRM system, isn't it?
Yeah, so great, but it means that you're at the behest of another business. So you go and build technology around somebody else. Yeah, so there's a difference there. Yopper's approach seems to be to try and put the buyer and the seller much more in direct contact with each other. Now, we don't think that an agent should step out of the way completely. We think that the agent should enable the seller and buyer to do things better. So what Yopper appeared to be doing is to allow viewings to be arranged directly between the viewer and the seller, viewing feedback to go directly between the two, and indeed offer negotiation to go directly between the two. We simply don't think that's optimal. So there's a big difference there. How Simple are very similar to Yopper in that respect, but How Simple we don't think have built anything in the way of technology. So very recently they were still working on Excel spreadsheets and so on. So they, to our knowledge, don't have a proper proprietary technology platform. So there are significant differences between all of the players in the sector. Some I don't think can even be labelled to have even a whiff of technology about them, really. If you haven't built a platform, a minimal viable product that works, then you can't be a tech business or even a tech-enabled business.
I don't know if you saw today, but Purplebricks announced that they're recruiting loads of these local property experts because they're going to have. Do you do the same model? Do you have local people, or do you run it from your central office?
So we do have people out on the road, yes. So we only have a pilot scheme running at the moment. So there's only half a dozen of them. But that half a dozen are employed, whereas the Purplebricks Yopper model is to use what we call the gig economy, so self-employed people that we don't think is, again, as optimal, because those people don't work for the business. They therefore have no obligation to that business apart from being a self-employed contractor. So they could be, driving a cab on a Monday, selling ice creams on a Tuesday, and valuing homes for Purplebricks or Yopper on a Wednesday. Now, I'm not suggesting that's always the case, and I'm sure some of those guys are busy enough for the Purplebricks role to be a full-time role. But our view is that if those local property experts, as we call them, are employed, then they are much more bedded into the business in terms of culture, compliance, and so on. So we think employed is the way forward. We also think that there's been a few rulings recently from that have affected Uber, Deliveroo, and others, where people within the gig economy may well have full employment rights, which means that they have the right to take that business to a tribunal for unfair dismissal, sexual discrimination, or indeed for recompense around holiday and sick pay. Now, if that were to happen to a Purplebricks with 400 odd local property experts, I mean that could impact their cost base, their bottom line. So we think that that's potentially a bit of a risk for Purplebricks and Yopper that use solely self-employed local property experts.
Okay, so with you guys, so somebody wants to buy a house, they talk to your agents in your office or maybe locally. So it's an agency role. It's just that you haven't got a high street branch.
Yeah, so we've got an internal sales team which deals with the majority of inquiries and listings, but we also have some people in some parts of the country in pilot form that will go out actually and do the face-to-face speculative valuation, the photos, the floor plan, and so on. So it's kind of a mixture, but we do intend to cover the whole of the UK with face-to-face listing negotiators ultimately. Okay,
so it's interesting. So the business is not all about technology, which is interesting. So what I'm just for everyone watching. So what is different about eMoov compared to the other online agencies, or are you merely all competing? Is there a different proposition?
We are competing, of course. So I'm competing with Yopper, Purplebricks, and so on. If someone Googles "sell my house" online, they're going to see a Purplebricks ad, an eMoov ad, and a Yopper ad. So yes, we are competing, but we're really competing with the high street, frankly, which still has 94% of the UK estate agency markets, and that's what we're gunning for. The difference between us and the others is that we think that we have worked out, and that this is where my 18 years estate agency experience comes in, which perhaps is not shared by my competitors. We think we understand better the role that human beings should play in the process, particularly around offer negotiation, buyer qualification, and sales progression. So the good bits of the old model, which are the valuation, the offer negotiation, the sales progression, and the buyer qualification, making sure that the buyer's got a chain that's complete, making sure the buyer's actually got an agreement in principle, that if they say they've got cash, that we check that. As we understand it, many of our competitors simply don't do that. Try and check a chain with some of our online competitors, you'll find it very difficult to do that. Verifying that a buyer actually is ready, willing, and able, this is the old phrase. Let's just say that some of our online competitors, by our contention, do not do that either at all or in the same way that we do. So we're blending very much the old and the new. We are the archetypal hybrid estate agent, best of the old, best of the new.
Okay, I'm going to tell you my I'm going to tell you my view of high street estate agents, and you can throw in. I've been following the debate for years. I mean, I don't know, our agency, we're commercial, so we're not in the residential space, but we went online from 2006 onwards, and we were not liked by the agency community in London because they thought that we were trying to disintermediate them, and we weren't. We just saw the business world changing. The high street estate agent, I cannot understand how the high street estate agent doesn't think that their world is changing. They carry on with this business about, well, we provide a superior service because we've got a high street and you can walk into our high street branch. And what they don't seem to understand, in my view, and I'm completely behind the online model, is the world of communication is so much easier than it ever was. You can engage with people on your phone. You have live chat. I mean, if you phone up Sky now, you can have a Sky technician in a little booth talking to you on a live feed. You don't actually need to be standing next to someone in order to provide them with the identical services you can provide online. I regularly have meetings on Skype with people 6,000 miles away. So I don't understand why the high street estate agent is convinced that they can still get away with charging 1.5% to 2%. Just because they've got a high street office. I just don't get it. I don't understand why they can't see it.
Well, the justification for a high street agent's fee is, the public justification is, you pay more, you get more, which we're disproving. So, if you look at the eMoov numbers versus the high street, we sell a home 5 days faster than the average high street estate agent, according to Zoopla's API. And we also achieve a 2% greater price versus asking price than the average. So there is no data whatsoever that will demonstrate that the average high street agent outperforms the average online estate agent, because actually, you can argue that we're all about the same, but some of us have an edge over others. The reason that high street agents will try to justify their fee is not based on that fee being representative of service, but simply because that fee is representative of their overheads. So if you have an office that costs you £20,000 a month because you choose to have that office, maybe 10 of them, maybe 100 of them, then the cost of that office, which obviously goes up and up and up in terms of rent, rates, utilities, staff, and so on, you simply have to justify your fee because you have to pay those overheads. So it's got nothing to do with service. And actually, why are we the UK's #1 estate agent for customer service, according to the UK's biggest review website? Because we treat our customers better than Foxtons and Countrywide and others. So, it's the rocks that are thrown at eMoov and Purplebricks and others. I'm afraid, actually, that what's happened over the last 2 or 3 years is the criticisms from some of the more Luddite estate agents in the sector have actually helped us arm ourselves with a way of better defending against those charges, those allegations. So we now have the data that shows that you won't get less if you sell through eMoov. You won't sell slower. You won't have less chance of selling. You won't get worse service. So the reality is, look, not only is online a thing, it's growing. So the numbers from Rightmove show that online estate agents and hybrid agents had a market share of 2.4% in 2014. We now have a 6.2% market share. Sounds small, but when you're doubling in size every 2 years, just extrapolate that out for the next 4, 6, 8 years. When it gets to 20%, which it will, the same as has happened in insurance and travel and recruitment and grocery and e-commerce and everything, look, that's kind of where it's going to go.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? See, my view on, if I can give some feedback on looking at all the online agencies, and you said it earlier, you said something which actually I haven't heard an online estate agency say before, is that the marketing is very much, we'll save you X thousand pounds. And you just said that actually you've got one of your propositions is you save you money, but also you provide service, quality of service.
Better.
Yeah.
Better.
Okay, better service. Because one of the, okay, the most, like I say, Purplebricks, for example, they've got a big checkbook. They're in the press. They're in the press a lot. People are always knocking Purplebricks particularly, and you and they are still relatively new businesses, and quality of service gets better as businesses mature. So just because you're online doesn't mean your service will be any worse. And as you say, it's the modern ways you should get better. The only thing is, I don't see the online agencies focusing on quality of service when they market themselves. They seem to focus on saving fees on the sale. And I do think it's very much both. If you're interested enough, I spoke to a solicitor just the other week who we were doing some work with, and she said she just sold her house from one of the online agencies, and she said it was great. It was great. So it's in some ways, if you get that message across, quality of service, you're going to kill the high street in no time.
Yeah, and look, I think
I really believe that.
Yeah, we do try to get that across. But if you look at our site and Purplebricks, we talk about our review ratings. We have lots of customer reviews. You don't see that on traditional estate agency websites. They probably don't know what Trustpilot is. Some of them, bless them. So when it comes to case studies, reviews, and the quality of service that we deliver, we do try and articulate that. But all of our research actually shows that it is the fee saving. So saving £2,000, £3,000, £4,000, or £70,000, as one of our customers did, having sold in North London very recently, versus using us versus Foxtons. So, the fee saving is probably the most compelling part of our proposition. Customer service is something that I'm obsessed about, and it's what the eMoov business has grown on. The problem with customer service is that customers expect it. So they don't believe it's a differentiator, and they probably don't know how bad their experience could be using some agents. So it's a difficult one, and almost if you say, hey, look, we're great, aren't we, we're brilliant, the consumer takes that with a bit of a pinch of salt. So it's a hard thing to articulate actually in a marketing message.
Okay, right, I've got a couple of questions for you. Let's see, what do you think of Savills investment in Yopa?
Clever, really clever. For two reasons. A, because I think they say it's a pure investment play. So the fact that they, along with the Daily Mail General Trust, have invested, I think, about £30 million in that business now, I think will reap them a decent return. But it also gets them into a part of the property market that Savills are not in. Savills don't really touch anything below £1 million. Yopa don't do much above £1 million. So it was, I think, a very clever move. I think the only thing they should perhaps consider more is that Savills have made representations that they don't intend to get involved with the business. As I understand it, Savills don't even sit on the Yopa board. I think that's a bit odd. I think Savills could learn a lot from the online sector, the same as Countrywide, Foxtons and others could also, if they woke up, would learn a lot from the online sector, the technology, the marketing, the culture. So I think it's a very wise thing for Savills to have done.
Okay, I've got another one for you now. You're gonna like this one. What's your view?
I like the way you said that.
Well, I'm just interested in what's your view of this Easy Property Guild of Estate Agent merger, takeover? I don't know what it is really. Rescue? I don't know what it is.
Easy Property rings a bell. No, I'm not sure I've come across them. No, so the Easy Property Guild thing, let me think. Look, I think that's a marriage of desperation, if I'm honest. I think the Easy Property brand is one of the problems with that business and the reason that it didn't grow. To give you a comparison, I don't say this with any smugness, but just as a fact, we listed more properties yesterday than Easy Property did last month. So that's the difference in scale between the Easy Property business.
Can I ask how many you listed? Are you able to say, out of interest?
So we did 25 properties yesterday.
Okay.
In listing terms, they did 24 in the whole of June. So that's the difference in scale between one online business and another. I'm just saying that to give you a comparison.
Yeah, no,
the Easy Property brand, the Easy Property brand is almost all of the problem with that business. And the reason that even though they raised 30 million quid, they spent it all pretty substantially on huge operational costs and massive marketing, but perhaps without the execution that they should have done. So I think execution was definitely lacking. But the brand, I don't think, has credibility when it comes to selling someone's home, which of course is a very, very valuable and precious thing. So I think what what the Easy Property shareholders had to do was to find a safe harbour, really. And the Guild is that safe harbour. The jury very much, I think, is out in the industry as to
what would be
the
interesting,
outcome, the benefit of what happens.
Well, I think what they've done, I think they try to compete with, say, as you say, the countrywide hybrid model. So I think they're trying to give their customer base through the Guild the option of an online solution or a traditional solution. I just wonder if you've got, I mean, the Guild of Estate Agents, remember, has got Fine and Country, which is the idea of a high-end brand. So if you've got
a great brand, really good brand.
So if you've got a £3, £4, £5 million house, I just wonder if those customers are going to want to put it on an Easy Property website, which I think is what they're being asked to do. So
so
anyway, it'd be interesting. Listen, I always wish people were success in business, so I'm just interested. So good luck to them.
Look, I say, and look, John Cook, who's now running that business, I have a lot of time for, a lot of respect for. He's a really good guy. If anyone can make it work, he will. But I think they're going to have some issues in terms of culture, distribution, and indeed, look, how much money have they got to spend on marketing? Because if Purplebricks are spending £17 million this year,
17.
So Purplebricks will spend about £17 million on TV, PPC this year. How will the likes of Easy, with a brand I think that's an uphill struggle, how will they compete with that? I don't think they will.
Okay, interesting. Well, I wish them luck anyway. All right, next one. What do you think of the On the Market site?
Somebody else that's ringing us a bell, but can't say I've come across them for a while.
Do they not allow you guys on there still?
They don't. And look, it's if Ian Springett, who I don't know, never met him, if he had tried to compete as On the Market with Rightmove and Zoopla on a level playing field, so if he hadn't elected to have this silly one other portal rule, and if he hadn't elected to ban the fastest growing sector within estate agency right now, which is online and hybrid, then actually I think he could have done a very good job of competing with Rightmove and Zoopla. What he's actually done is paint himself into a corner. So he's now restricted the amount of customers that he can take, and of course has restricted his appeal, because a lot of agents want to have maximum coverage for their customers, i.e. be on Rightmove, Zoopla, and potentially On the Market, as opposed to having to choose between the two. So I think the whole proposition was a busted flush from day one, really, which is why they've never really got past their 20% market share penetration in terms of the amount of agents they've got. So I think On the Market will kind of bounce along the bottom for a little while, and I suspect what will happen is, because they won't have that much money, because of course it's fueled by its owner members, they will eventually, I would think, probably demutualise and sell to somebody, just like Ian Springett sold Prime Location all those years ago. So otherwise, I simply don't think it works.
Yeah, isn't that what I think? I'm a bit cynical, actually. I think that's what the whole game plan was. They wanted to build up another one, sell it out, and then make a few quid. And
Ian Springett says not. It's always going to be a mutual, but it simply hasn't worked. He grew to 20% of estate agency numbers and didn't grow beyond that. And now, of course, look, they've just won the first part of their Gascoigne, the Connells Gascoigne case in terms of the move against that one portal rule. So they've won the first stage of that, but they'd still bet a lot of their agents' money on that court case, which maybe would have been better off being spent on marketing. Surely.
You see, I think that what happened was that a lot of the agents were backing On the Market because they complained about the high costs of listing on Rightmove or Zoopla. Now, at our commercial agency, we do a lot of work. We're very involved in technology, as you know. And I don't think Rightmove and Zoopla were charging agents a lot for what they were getting. And if they really knew what was behind it, they would realise that it was very good value. And I'm not a shareholder in Zoopla or Rightmove, so it doesn't make any difference to me. But I think that agents who were saying that they wanted to join On the Market to bring down the cost, I think they're missing the point a bit. That's what I thought, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I agree. When you compare Rightmove and Zoopla costs to local newspapers that we've all advertised in for years and years and years, it's much better value and it's measurable, whereas local newspaper ads really aren't. So no, I'm inclined to agree. I think what the agents involved were looking at is perhaps through, green eyes of envy, if you like, looking at Rightmove and Zoopla profits as a percentage of revenue, and seeing that Rightmove will post revenues of 120 million quid and 90 million quid in EBITDA. I think that is that's their problem, that's their issue, rather than what's being charged perhaps for for individual agents per se. But look, frankly, look, on the market, has it worked? No. Will it thrive?
Okay, really interesting talking to you. I'm going to ask, I've got one last question, and then I'm going to see if anyone else has got any questions for you before we do our bit about how great we are. Are there any new technologies affecting your market that you think are interesting?
Yeah, I guess I can start off with the things that seem to be hammered home a lot by some, like virtual reality and 3D tours and stuff, which I don't think are a thing, because the friction around those things is the hardware. What I think is going to be very interesting for our industry is AI, artificial intelligence. If you can get machine learning to be better than a human being when it comes to potentially, let's say, negotiating an offer, demonstrating what the right price for a home is, various other things that we may or may not be working on at this moment in time, which I can't go into. AI, I think, will be the biggest change for this industry that we've ever seen. So I think that really is property 2.0.
Okay. There's actually one business that I've come across, which I think is going to change the game, which you may have heard about. You may have heard of it. Click to purchase. Interestingly enough,
I have.
That's a side business that we've got, and interestingly enough, that's to do online exchanges. I think we've talked about it briefly. Interestingly enough, Savills have just started running it in Ireland, so we'll be interested to see how that market operates there. Okay, guys.
Anything that helps the conveyancing process is good by me, because the conveyancing
process actually. Again, it's been used primarily in the UK and so far in the commercial market, but it does enable deals to happen very quickly, and it does cut out this gazumping and delays, and it puts control in the hands of the agent and the seller, but it also empowers the buyer, because the buyer can make an offer, they can put their money down, and if the agent wants to accept it, they press a button, the deal's done. And that is the way it's all going, actually. There's new regulations around e-signatures, etc., etc. We'll have to have a chat about this one day. We'll have to get eMoov involved. Guys, sure. Anyone got any questions? How about in Scotland?
I've got a question. Yep. Russell. Have you got any figures in terms of age profile and demographic of buyers and sellers? Are you finding it's younger people or older people, or right across the board?
Buyers seem to be very. Bearing in mind, a buyer doesn't choose an agent. The buyer chooses the home that happens to be sold by an agent. So, we haven't analysed that in any great detail.
I'm just more thinking about, embracing technology and everything else. Is there a younger people are more likely to embrace technology? Certainly in the commercial side, we still see, in terms of commercial marketing, a lot of firms are still way behind, I think, in terms of where they should be, which is great from our point of view because we're way ahead. But I just wondered, obviously younger people are more likely to embrace technology and do things online.
Yeah, we have an age profile. It's a bit of a widespread, really, but 35 to 55 is our age profile. So I think there is a kind of an early adopter element to people that use an online hybrid agent. They tend to be the people that have been using Amazon for ages, and they use online comparison websites perhaps more than others. But of course, not forgetting that it's very unusual these days, particularly in the southeast, to have a 25-year-old home buyer or homeowner rather, at least not someone at that age that's selling. So I don't think we've yet got to what I think is the millennial sweet spot. So in 10 years' time, when those millennials are starting to sell property, then I think that further fuels the growth of online hybrid estate agents in the sector.
You know what might be interesting, actually, come that point, is that we've all seen it with our kids, is that they don't talk to each other. They're all texting, or they're messaging. And in fact, what we found is that, and we have a live chat on our website, and people engage with you on a live chat. They prefer that than phoning you. So it's interesting, actually. You've got your agents, Russell. How do they interact with people? Is it a phone, email, live chat? Is it?
Yeah, always. So phone for sure, email, but we do hundreds of live chats a week, hundreds, with viewers, buyers, existing customers, sellers, people that have got queries on their listing and so on. So we do hundreds of them.
It's such an interesting.
It's efficient. Yeah, because our operatives can do 4 or 5 of those at one time rather than juggling, one phone call. So it's much more efficient.
Yeah, I find it. We find it great actually. Find it really good, really good. Okay, Dale, Richard, you got anything you want to ask? Or
Yeah, hi Russell. I've got a quick question. I think you mentioned earlier that the average value of a home you sell it, I think you said was 300,000.
Yeah.
Are you, given that sort of the rise in online estate agencies such as yourselves and the public sort of embracing online agencies, are you seeing or expecting to see the value of homes you're selling increasing, so that you sort of, I don't know if you've seen any movement in the average sort of value, where the sort of, you know, people at the higher end of the market are, you know, as people gain confidence in the online model, whether you're seeing sort of higher end properties being sold as well via agencies such as yourselves, or?
Yeah, our average is higher than the national average. So, bearing in mind we're a national agent, so we're dealing with as much in Leeds as we are in, you know, North London. I guess, look, the fact that our average is 300k and the average house that's sold in the UK is, you know, 230-ish, £235,000. Obviously, we're kind of ahead there in terms of demographics, should we say. In terms of us selling properties at a much higher figure, so 2 million plus, it's, look, we sell a bit more of that now than we did, say, 3 or 4 years ago, but it's really not our market. And I think that market's very different. Because I think of where the buyers are. So, you know, that is much more about picking up the phone and ringing people rather than it being, you know, predominantly about portals. And I guess that it's the people that we would be dealing with, and that Savills and Knight Frank and CBRE deal with at 5 million plus, they tend to be very, very time poor and quite cash rich. So it's kind of, you know, not really our market. We're not aiming for it. Look, the stuff above 2 million quid is about 1 to 2% of the UK estate agency market. It's just not worth us focusing on it, frankly.
Russell, how do people find you? Do they find your properties through? Are you high on SEO, search engines, or is it through the portals?
The properties of buyers predominantly are coming through either our website, which gets hundreds of thousands of hits a month, or through Rightmove and Zoopla. Sellers are coming through, I mean, various channels. We've got a marketing team. Marketing team that are optimizing multiple channels, whether it be SEO, PPC, various other things. Where we get a lot of traction is through PR. So we get about 200 pieces of press coverage a month, digitally and in print, across, you know, national and regional titles. So that conveys an awful lot of traffic and inquiries through to our sales team, and also word of mouth. So about 20% of everything we do now, 20% of our revenue, our listings on a monthly basis, comes from referral and recommendation from happy customers that are telling friends and relatives and work colleagues about us.
Really interesting. Okay, good. Any more from the floor? Oh, hold on. You're muted.
Hi.
Are you muted? There you are. Go.
Hi, Russell.
Yeah, hi there.
Hi there. Since in the last 12 months, since Brexit and in and around the election, have you noticed a marked change in the market, whether it's gone up or it's gone down or hasn't changed? And have you noticed any regions in particular which have been more affected than others, say the south or southeast compared to the north? Or have you noticed the market be fairly steady?
Look, I'd have to say, look, if Brexit has affected the market, if it is Brexit, an uncertainty, I suppose there's a few other factors it might be, such as snap general elections and all sorts of other stuff. We have been much less affected by it. So our volume of listings has increased over the last 12 months at the same pace as it did the previous 12 months. So we're ahead in terms of listings, revenue and sales now compared to this time last year. So we certainly haven't been affected by it. There has been a reduction in volume in the market, particularly in London, for sure. So that's about a 30% reduction in transaction volumes across the country. But we've bucked that. So, you know, you look at Foxton's numbers. Foxton's are about 40% down. In London, we're over 100% up. So despite Nick Budden at Foxton saying fairly recently that online estate agents have not affected his business, you might want to look at the numbers again. Because frankly, look, our growth in London has to come from somewhere, and it must come from the incumbency. So, I mean, look, the very long answer to your succinct question is that we haven't been affected by Brexit, if indeed it is Brexit that's affected what is undoubtedly a slowdown in transactions in overall UK house sales.
Interesting. Tell me, do your agents, have they come from the traditional high street? Because it'd be interesting how they've seen it change.
Yeah, the guys out on the road definitely. So they're all former high street agents. So you know, the team that we've got in Leeds have all worked in Leeds estate agents for many, many years. Our 6 people out on the road have got a combined 100 years experience in high street estate agents. But the people that we have in our customer care centre, so the people that are looking after offer negotiation, sales progression, buyer qualification, customer support, we tend not to hire estate agents. We hire people from retail, from other service industries, from charities, and people that have a customer service focus, rather than perhaps having been tainted by working in the traditional estate agency sector.
Okay, really interesting. Really interesting. Okay, another question for you. Do you attract overseas buyers at all? I mean, I don't know if you're selling investment stock at all, whether it tends to be owner-occupier stuff. I don't know if you have residential stuff in developers, or do you get the overseas buyers?
Do. Yeah, we have a spattering of them, but we're not big on investment stuff. We tried listing a whole lot of sort of student accommodation investment stuff in Salford Quays last year, but it tended to be overpriced, saturated in terms of it being represented by dozens and dozens of agents. So we moved away from that as a bit of a failed experiment, really. So that's not really our thing, frankly. You know, the new stuff tends to be, new builds tends to be the target for sort of, Chinese and Middle Eastern buyers, as we understand it. So it's not really our thing.
Okay, good. All right. Okay. When you get, when an agent gets a couple of people after a property, and then you're like, you've got your team, so I'm sure you act like other agents. You do, let's say you do a sealed bid, all right? You do a sealed bid. How do you do a sealed bid?
No, we don't. We don't. So look,
you don't do that.
We stuff like that. It's all very smoke and mirrors. We hate all that. Putting a bid in an envelope. It's all just too murky. So we have a much more straightforward way of doing things. If there's interest in a property by somebody, the offer gets put forward, the buyer gets qualified. If there's another offer, that gets put forward. We work with the seller then to say, look, you've got 2 offers. They're either the same financially or they're different. The buying position's different. One's got a chain, one hasn't. One's cash, one needs a 95% mortgage, for instance. We guide the seller to make that choice. We will tell various buyers kind of where they're up to. So if there's 3 asking price offers, let's say, we'll tell all 3 buyers, look, you're all at the asking price. So it becomes a bit of a Dutch auction, but that's to the benefit of the seller. And at the end of the day, our obligation legally and morally is to make sure that the seller gets the best price possible. So, do we push buyers up if there is significant demand for a particular property? Yeah, we do, unashamedly.
There is we have to talk to you about click to purchase. We have to talk to you because it will do exactly that job online, and you and I are going to get together.
We're going
to get you talking about that. Can I actually let's my last question. I'm sure. Is anyone else?
I have another question as well afterwards.
Right. Okay. Go on, Richard. You jump in.
I read that in one of the Sunday papers that there was an agent in a chain doing a deal with Purplebricks, and he phoned Purplebricks for an update on the sale of the property his client was selling. And Purplebricks said, we can't speak to you. It's automated. It's in a queuing system. When it's your turn, you'll get a phone call with an update. How does eMoov deal with agents, high street estate agents, acting for buyers or sellers in a chain?
Yeah, well, because we have our own dedicated negotiators and sales progressors, if we need to check a chain, we will ring the agent, check the chain and note it. If someone rings us for a chain check, then we'll give them all the information as a traditional agent would do. But that's one of the big differences between us and Purplebricks and Yopper. We're a full service agent. We're not trying to do bits and pieces, the visible bits to get the listing. We're carrying through the entire process from start to finish as the customer would want us to. So we don't have gaps in our proposition, perhaps like some of our competitors.
Russell, do you operate in Scotland?
Yeah, we do. Obviously, it's a different scenario, particularly from a regulatory point of view and a conveyancing point of view. But yes, we do. I wouldn't say we're significant in Scotland, but we do list properties and sell properties in Scotland, yeah.
Because it's interesting, because Graham, our man in Scotland, who's embraced tech for the commercial market in Scotland, has seen the market really move that direction, hasn't it, really? Well, certainly with us. Certainly.
Well, let me give you a stat. So in Aberdeen is one of the biggest users of online estate agents in the country. There is an over 10% market share of customers using online estate agents in Aberdeen versus what we said earlier, which is about a 6% rate elsewhere. So there's almost twice as many people in Aberdeen choosing online and hybrid agents versus high street agents.
Interesting. Have you come across that, Graham?
That's because they're tight in Aberdeen. They want to save as much as possible. That's why.
Careful is the word.
We might have to edit that.
Careful, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, and I've got one last question. Richard, Dale, anything? I've got one last question for Russell. Anyone? Okay, Russell, I've got a question. Nested, all right? For those who, tell me if I've got this model wrong, but the nested model is that they will offer to sell your house as an online agency, but if they don't sell it within a given period of time, they'll buy it off you. I think that's correct, isn't it? Having read their literature.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Matt Robinson, the CEO of that business, will be much better placed than me to be an advert for his business model. But
it's a very
it is that. So what happens is
it's a very unusual online agency model.
Yeah, I'm not sure they call themselves an online agent, really. They charge a percentage fee, so a 2% fee, let's say. They will then guarantee to pay you the amount that's an equivalent to a percentage of that. So let's say it's 90 or 95% after a given period of time. They then obviously take the balance sheet burden of that property and have to go on and sell it. At the moment, I think they're doing pretty low volume, but I think it's a very interesting concept. One that's been borrowed from the US, as we said earlier, from Open Door and Knock. And I think it's got significant traction in the US. I think, look, it'll be a market-led type of model. So I think it will probably do better in a weaker market where people are struggling to sell and therefore perhaps need the funds quicker, maybe to bridge to a purchase or just simply because they need the money. But I think it's a very, very interesting concept. I think, look, what Matt would say is this is not about giving people 90% of the value of their home. This is about giving people certainty. But look, it is selling through Nested, and look, I've got to say this: is selling through Nested more expensive than selling through eMoov?
Yeah, but I would have thought they've got I mean, I'm not knocking the business; it's just an observer. They've got a tremendous conflict of interest because if they don't, I think that if they don't sell it within a month, they then buy it, right? Aren't they therefore going to try and buy it cheaply? Yeah. I mean, and isn't it in their interest to buy it cheaply rather than sell it? Sell it to another buyer. So it's a very, I think it's a very. The thing I've seen.
I guess it is, but look, it's seller beware, isn't it? Look, the seller's going to do their own research. They'll have a load of other estate agents around to value the home. They're going to take what they can take. So look, I think in Nestor's defence, it's not so much about them pulling the wool over people's eyes. It's them, simply saying, look, this is what we think it's worth. Let's market it at that price. If it doesn't sell after a period of time, whatever that is, and I think those time periods are adjustable actually, or will certainly be in the future, then they give you a price that you can either accept or not. So the commerciality of it is that, of course, I'm sure they'd love to list everything that's worth 500k at 450. The sellers simply aren't stupid. They're not going to let that happen, are they?
No. The one thing I've learned actually about tech is, and because I go to some of these tech conferences, I think I'm going to give them a miss for the next 12 months, because what I do, you see a lot of ideas in tech which actually are not already in the general economy, and I think the best businesses that are the ones that have literally taken the traditional way of doing things and put them online. I mean, an online agency, you've taken a high street agency, you've put it online. When you change the model, you trying to change the way people operate. I think that's where people have resistance. So for example, the eBay style auction for property just hasn't taken off here. I don't think it will take off because you're changing the way people auction property, and I don't think people want to do it that way. So that's my view. That's my view. Anyway, so Russell, you've been a great guest. Really interesting. And you've had this chat, you've been on for ages. Right, guys, we would tell everyone who's watching how great our agency is very quickly. So Russell, if I can thank you, what I would say, anybody watching, if you want an introduction to Russell and eMoov, please let me know, or Dale or Richard or Graham. We'll put you in direct touch with Russell. And if you want to sell your house, I'm sure he's the place to go. Okay, there you are. There's our plug for you, Russell. There's our plug.
Thank you,
okay,
Brent.
guys.
Much
right,
appreciated.
guys. So, guys, let's tell everyone how great Vielle is very quickly. We've had quite a good month. The market for commercial property is reportedly down. Our turnover remains constant, I'm pleased to say. We've actually had some good successes. So let's show you what we've been doing. Dale, do you want to talk?
Here we go. Oh, can't hear you.
There you go. Dale?
Yep.
So look, there you go, Oxford.
Okay, so this is a property we've just sold, a shop we've just sold in Headington, which is a suburb of Oxford, which is let to a Starbucks franchisee with 2 months left on the lease. We've just sold this for 5% net initial yield, 665,000 against an asking price of 650,000. We had a lot of interest, selling for an overseas client, sold it to a private cash buyer. We've also just completed on the sale of a health and fitness club in Cwmbran, South Wales, which is long income, about 19 years unexpired, to Nuffield Health, which we sold to a private cash buyer at £3.9 million, 6.3%. And we've also just sold a food store investment in Kirkby and Ashfield in Nottinghamshire, 15 years to the co-op, not in occupation, sublet to the original factory shop at a much lower rent. And that's just sold at £1.69 million, which is 7.6%.
Okay, so the market is good. Richard, should we run through some of the things on the market that we've got, just so people
Sure, there's quite a few, so I'll just run through them quickly, and then anyone can contact us for more information. We're selling a freehold neighbourhood shopping centre in Peterborough at a yield of 8%, £960,000, majority secured to Tesco. We are selling a petrol filling station in Norfolk, let to McColl's for another 14 years at 6%, £1.89 million. We're selling a shop in Bromley in the town centre, let to Jennings Bet at £835,000, 6.25%. We're selling an office building in a prime city centre location in Sheffield, let to Irwin Mitchell, which is just over £7 million, 7.3% initial yield. We're selling 2 restaurant leisure investments in Croydon city centre, Slug and Lettuce, which is just opened following a refurbishment, and a Wagamama with 14 years and 18 years unexpired lease terms respectively, 5 and 5.5% net initial yields. We're selling a shop in West Bromwich, let to New Look for just under 10 years at £3.5 million. We're selling a Co-op supermarket in Ivybridge in Devon, let for another 11 years at 6.5%, £2.73 million. A retail warehouse in Scunthorpe, let to Go Outdoors at £2.585 million, 6%, with 11 years left. A multi-let office building in Glasgow city centre for overseas clients at £1.88 million, at just under 10%. And Iceland in Scotland, long lease with minimum fixed increases in the rent at £1.1 million, 7%, and an Ask restaurant in Swansea at £1,055,000, 6% net initial yield.
Okay, and Graham, you've got a couple that you're dealing with. I put up here. You've got I put up. Where are we? Swansea. There's the Lush
and Inverness. Well, we haven't been on the Hangout since the monumental general election result. So I think we are feeling in Scotland a lot better. We think the SNP have been and I think this is the general feeling amongst all agents in Scotland, that independence, whether the SNP admit it or not, is off the table. And we think more people will start to look at Scotland, having shied away in the last 18 months, which it's early days, but one hopes that it will lead to more demand and prices increasing. But I think people are going to start looking again at Scotland. This is a fantastic unit in High Street Inverness, let to Lush for 5.5 years, 8.5% yield, and it's a great wee shop. And I came out of there smelling beautiful. The fragrance is lovely and lush. The American Golf in Dundee is under offer. That's due to sell next week. We have just completed on the sale of Tony and Guy, a single let unit in Glasgow city centre on behalf of a large property fund. That sold at closing date for 1.21 million. We were asking 1.1, so clients delighted with that result. And we're generally seeing more inquiries. I mean, Wick in the north of Scotland went on the market, and it was due to sell this week, having only been in the market for 2 weeks, selling to a buyer from south of the border. So we are optimistic in Scotland, and as always, seeking more stock. Okay.
Yeah, we've certainly picked up, actually, as a business, we've certainly picked up increasing amount of instructions in Scotland. And there's certainly a feeling that now that the Brexit, as you say, not Brexit, the Scottish referendum's off the table, there's lots of interest in the Scottish market. Russell, you don't do commercial, do you?
No, never touch commercial. No, we've done some mixed-use stuff, so shops underneath flats and stuff like that. But we're not a commercial agent at all.
Would you go into commercial, do you think?
It's not my field of expertise. I'd have to bring somebody in that knows that stuff. Maybe. I mean, there's some really good businesses like Vielle, who are both kind of search side and back office software side. So Andy Miles that runs Vielle does a very, very good job at that. So it's not on the radar, really, frankly.
Okay. Right. So all I think, look, we've been online for an hour. So just to say, if anybody wants to contact us to get a CPD certificate, please get in touch. We ought to actually think of a relevant question from, say, half an hour ago, in case anybody just sort of dials into the end. I know, I've got a good question. What is the percentage of online sales in Aberdeen? There you are. If you tell us the percentage of online sales in Aberdeen, when you drop us an email, we'll send you your CPD certificate. That came out from there. So that came out from Russell. So we've got sales coming up shortly in more in Inverness. In the southeast, we've got some co-ops. We've got some properties in Wigan, Leeds, and Trowbridge. So even though the market is on the whole, at the high end, relatively quiet, we're very busy. So please get in touch if you want to buy commercial property. So, Russell, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really interesting hearing about eMoov. I wish you lots of success with the business, and may you grow from strength to strength. And
thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
And as I said, if anybody wants an introduction to Russell, please do let us know. So, Russell, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Richard, thank you.
Thank you.
Graham, thank you. Oh, look, I knew something would go wrong. His microphone's gone off. Dale?
No, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay, sorry. Dale,
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Neil Singer, thank you very much for joining us. On to the next one. Thank you very much. Bye.
All right, cheers.